Journey of the Beloved, Chapter 4, Tiger's Milk. From Thoth, the Seven Feathers. This is a journal or something of his, I'm not sure, but this is the way he delivered it to me, that it's from something of his called the Seven Feathers. When time came for me to enter the world, I brought about release from my mother's womb, and Astarte, Maya, delivered me forth into my first day. My father, Lazarel, bathed me in the herbal water and presented me to the son of Tungzi. That would be Tibet. A being of great light, Isthaka, had appeared to Astarte in the night and told her what must be done to present me to this life, so that I might be made ready to serve as my purpose directed. Lazarel raised me with his great arms toward the flaming orb. My lungs filled with the sweet thin air, and a cry rang from my smallness, echoing through the chambered bells of granite made by the peaks of my homeland. As the solar emanations bathed my body, my skin warmed to a golden color, and my hands opened wide. As prophecy had foretold, in my left hand was revealed a small blue stone, the lapis ice, and in my right palm was born a green, dark green crystal, the emerald fire of the holy cup. Before Thoth Raismes' birth, Usamonji took Maya, that would be Lazarel. Usamonji is Lazarel, and Maya is Astarte. They had several names in those days. To a visiting priest seer by the name of Ababeketos. There we go, Ababeketos. Try to say that 7 times. This seer was among the order who believed in allowing physical aging for themselves. This Abba, as he was called, was old and wrinkled at only 112. He would live another 85 years, appearing no older than he did the day Usamonji and Astaramara came to him. Although his order believed in experiencing the process of aging, they did not believe in dying from it. Abba consumed just enough prima matra and indulged in minimal regenerative techniques so that he would be able to extend his life in reasonable good health until the day came when he, of his own choosing, would depart the body. The old one looked upon Maya, her firm belly rounded with life. His small dark eyes, although kindly, penetrated her soul. She felt her child stir and a prickling sensation run through her spine. He spoke, and his voice was like the rustling wind coming from a deep cavern in the earth. Your son will be born with the stone of heaven in his palms. So he will bring the stars to earth once again. He will be suckled by a white tigress, and her milk will be sweeter than the honey from the hives of Atlantis. KYI'RA will be named, light that strikes the earth. When he has become a man, so the gods will bring us together once again. At that time I will pronounce to the world his identity, which until then shall go unnamed. When he is 2 years of age, take him into the land of the black sun, Egypt, to the temple of the lion. Have him blessed therein, and his name be written in stone. That's interesting because what stone? Would it be the stone in the pyramid? Well, there is no inscription in the pyramid except the graffiti left by that king. I can't even say his name now. You know, the king that wrote his name all over the place and said that that was his tomb, which of course it wasn't. He just decided to claim it. But there's no ancient writing in the pyramid that we've ever discovered, that Egyptologists have ever discovered, or at least have let us know they've discovered. So I wonder where that might be. It doesn't actually say that his name was written in stone in or on the Temple of the Lion. Oh well, we shall continue, but that piques my curiosity. Maya became fearful at the seer's words, for she knew that her parents and her grandmother had left the land of the black sun under dangerous circumstances. They had been awakened in the night by a youth whom they mistook for a stable boy, later realizing his identity to be a greater mystery. The boy had told them to flee that land, leaving all behind but bare necessities, and traveled into Murana to make for themselves a new home. Her parents did not question the youth, for they were not asleep to the truth of which he spoke. Yet many years later, they had been killed mysteriously by nomads. Then her first husband had been murdered by 3 unknown assailants. She knew in her heart that her parents' death and that of Ithaca's were linked to a terrible bond. Just a moment, changing a page here. She feared that to journey into such a forbidding land would bring ill omen upon her family. Usamonji comforted her that night, telling his Astarte that he felt the presence of several beings of light near them. They would be protected, even so, 2 years was a length of time that was not now undone before them. Why unwind the spool of thread, questioned Usamonji, when the weaver is not yet at his loom? Somewhat requited, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, Istara Maya joyfully awaited the birth of KYI'RA. I find it, well, maybe I've mentioned this before, but rather shocking how many people are murdered in this thing. And they're members of Thoth's family, Thoth Raismes, even down to his wife and 2 children. Obviously, the archonic powers were in full swing trying to stop this lineage. KYI'RA was born on the summer solstice in the year 9060 BC. True to prophecy, his tiny hands concealed stones which seemed to have formed from a sticky white-silver substance secreted from the chakras in his palms. After the ceremony of his anointing and the bestowing of his birth name, the babe was given to suck for the first time, yet he refused the tit, and after 2 days Istara Maya's milk was gone, and the infant had still taken no nourishment, not even that of goat's milk with a little wine. In despair, Istara Maya wept and prayed, lighting candles to Ashura, the goddess of birth. Ushnamongi was silent and waited. He remembered the rest of Abba's prophetic words. In the twilight of the 3rd day, Istara Maya was holding her weakened baby, pacing back and forth in the garden, while her husband watched her from a distance. Suddenly he noticed a movement in the bushes near the garden's edge. Green growth was scarce upon the high rocks where KYI'RA rested, but there was a natural enclave not far from the palace, surrounded by boulders protecting it from the wind. Here was found a small spring that fought its way through the forbidding stone and poured down the side of the cliff. This enclave had been enhanced with fertile soil brought from the lowlands and genetically engineered strains of flowering herbal flora plants in the transported earth. I'm sorry, these plants were planted there, is what I'm trying to say. Thus, a miniscape of nature bloomed within the sheltered grove. Even small animals visited there, and birds of various colors and types sang their songs and preened at the sight of their colorful reflections in the languid pool of the garden. But there was no harmless rabbit or fox which made its way through the bushes on the KYI'RA's 3rd day of life. The sage of Aphra froze, an icy hand gripping his heart as he saw the immense white tiger emerge from its camouflage in the shade and walk gracefully and regally toward the woman and child. Part of him wished to run, flinging himself between the beast and those he dearly loved, yet a greater emotion was then upon him, silken and warm, scented in the mist of time by an ancient knowing, a purpose, a plan. Usamonji felt his body relax, his lungs take in the perfumed air, and his eyes fill with tears of gladness as he saw the creature lie down at the feet of the mistress of KYI'RA. He could see now that she was a tigress, her tits heavy with milk, which Usamunji knew with certainty was as sweet as the honey from the hives of Atla. Istaramaya evidenced no alarm at the animal's behavior. She hesitated only for but a moment, and then in one motion she bent to the tigress and placed her son to the she-breast's breast. Usamunji slowly walked toward this amazing scene. When he reached his wife's side, he beheld a peace upon her face that he had not seen before. Tirna suckled hungrily at the tigress as the tigress eyed the babe with curiosity at first and then a sleepy acceptance. Her amber gold eyes were each as large as the infant's fist. She made a gurring sound from deep inside her enormous white body, echoing love and contentment throughout the garden. There was a stillness about the moment, as if time would not dare encroach upon the sacred power of motherhood shared by the two females and the child that lay between them. From that day forth, until the young Tirna had no need of mother's milk, the tigress would stride into the garden at twilight to suckle him. The babe thrived on this one feeding a day until he was ready for a pulp-like mixture of herbs and fruits. Then the tigress came no more to KYI'RA. Tirna was a peaceful child in most ways, but as he learned to walk, like all children, he sought adventure with every unsteady step. He especially loved the garden. Before the age of 1, he began talking a few scattered words. His first had been tiger. His parents soon discovered that, turn page, the boy possessed a vivid memory of his infancy and the royal beast that had sustained his life during those early months. As he toddled from flower to bush, he was always seeking her out. He would ask his mother why the creature did not come to him anymore. It was a question she could not answer. Tirna even had a special name for the tigress. He called her Numuji, meaning she who brings forth the sun, which was one of many names for the female moon. And there's a notation here, before the earth changes which consumed Atlantis in 9010 BC, there were 2 moons about our planet. One was understood as carrying a masculine charge and the other feminine. It was the feminine moon that fell from the sky in the great cataclysm. All of this about the 2 moons is quite mysterious, especially now that we know more about the moon we have. And ancient texts had said that there was a time when there were no moons, suggesting the moon we have now is artificial. Thoth says it's semi-artificial. And I received back in 1968, 69, whenever that was, that the moon had hollow caverns and things in it. And when I told Edgar Mitchell that at the time, he said, yes, we know that. So there's all kinds of mystery about it. 2 moons, no moons, 1 moon. And at some point in time, I want to get with Thoth and do a complete moon video and ask him tell me, okay, what is this really all about? So right now, all I can say to you is that in Thoth's world, when he was that age, there were 2 moons. Or actually, yes, there would have been up to the time when the great cataclysm occurred. So in his young age, there were 2 moons. Finally, Tirna's second birth consecration birthday arrived. This was a day that Istaramaya had awaited with a dull heaviness in her chest. 10 sunrises later, Usamunji and his family departed for the land of the Black Sun. The journey, which had taken 17 days, had been uneventful, and Istaramaya began to relax and enjoy the strange beauty of this foreign land. And then I have a notation here that says their mode of travel to Egypt was partly conventional for the times and partly in a manner befitting the sunborn. So we would suggest there that probably they were using spaceships to arrive there at some point. And when I say spaceships, that's really not the right word. I would prefer to call these Star Merkaba, because they wouldn't be like spaceships with control panels and Star Trek knobs and things like that. They would be different. It would be more of an almost womb plasma-like transportation, energy, light, consciousness thing, I would imagine. Okay, so they arrived at the Temple of the Left-Handed Way, where they were to seek audience with a priest or priestess from among those whose duty it was to bless children under the age of 4 years, dedicating them to whatever god goddess was then revealed to the priest priestess. Now, they had these god goddesses then, yes, but they understood that these were representations of power, of natural energy, of cosmic consciousness. And they brought them into a personal persona for various reasons I'm not going to go into here because it would take us off of our book. But later, of course, not much later, it's when they were gone, people just took the gods and goddesses and that was it. You know, they were seen as gods and goddesses. Astara Maya reasoned that this part of the priest-seer Abba's directive would be simple. It was the next steps that concerned her. Few children were blessed within the Temple of the Lion, for it was the most sacred temple in all the land. Secondly, KYI'RA's name was to be written in stone, according to the Abba. Oh, we're going to find out a little bit more about this here. What could this mean? Even Usamonji could not decipher this part of the prophecy. Early in the morning hours of the day they had planned to seek audience for KYI'RA in the Temple of the Left-Handed Way, Usamonji had a powerful dream vision in which he saw a woman clothed in shining veils so brilliant he sought to look away from her, yet he could not, for her presence riveted his soul, and his spirit hungered to cherish the beauty of her form beneath the curtains of light. She spoke unto the sage, saying, I am the mother of the sun. Bring the child who is mine own, to the garden of Rupara, before the hour of the noontide. Usmonji then saw 3 pillars lifting upward into the starry firmament. The left pillar was white, shorn of any design, gleaming as a beam of sparkling dew, the quality of soft, fine light. The pillar on the right was the likeness of silver oxine, that's mercury, mutable with the vapor of the sky. The middle pillar, was a rarefied gold, 2 serpents carved in relief coiled about the pillar in a fiery embrace. Suspended above the 3 pillars was a square block of stone, upon which a stylus moved, as if commanded by an unseen hand. A sign was hewn upon the stone in this fashion, and the sign was that of a trident with a sphere above each of the 3 prongs. You can see that here on Thoth's forehead. I have them sort of like little sparkly dots, but they were actually birthmarks, which then Thoth covered with a dot of paint, you know, so like they would do in India. But actually underneath them were birthmarks. I now know, these many years later, that this is the sign of the Chintamani stone. There's a lot more about that, but for now we'll leave it at that. Okay, the voice of the mother of the sun spoke once again. I give unto thee the seal of he who is the master of the 3 crowns. Let it be so inscribed with the Vita of Thoth. Within the Vita of Thoth. So let me read that again. Let it be so inscribed within the Vita of Thoth. T-O-T-H, like the first Thoth, Thoth Muzurut. Now, my notation here says a chamber in the Great Pyramid or Temple of the Lion. So there's a chamber. Now, I am feeling that chamber is probably the midden chamber, chamber of the sun, the midden chamber. I won't go into more on that because I've written about it so much, but I think that's what it is. When Usamonji awoke, he smelled a sweet scent about him and knew that the mother of the sun had passed her hand upon his heart. Astara Maya stirred next to him, and he saw a glimmer of pale yellow light about her. He knew that she too had been quickened by the woman of veils. Following the instruction of the lady in his dream vision, Usamunji did not go that morning to the temple of the left-handed way, but instead took his wife and stepson to the garden of Aphra just before noontide, the same day. As they sat in the shade of the trees, tiny birds chortled for attention from the small boy who fed them with his open palms. Animals and fowl of all kinds always came without fear to Tirna, allowing him to stroke them. The birds seemed to be carrying on a conversation with the boy as he made chirping sounds amidst their joyous twittering. A delicate symphony of chimes blended with the harmony of the winged ones, and gurgling, rushing waters beat a rhythm into the orchestration, completing the compendium of song. After a while, a tall man with a shaven head, wearing an azure blue robe trimmed in tiny golden beads, strolled upon the path toward where the family was seated. Like all sunborn, he was ageless in appearance. His eyes were a brilliant blue fire, set in sharp features, almost hawk-like in their candor. He stopped before Usamunji, who was now on his feet. The tall one introduced himself as Ponja, master of the seventh way. Both Usamunji and Astaramaya knew that the path of the seventh way was a high degree of initiation in the Temple of the Lion. Astaramaya's maternal grandfather had been initiate of this path. Ponja looked upon Tirna, who stood draped from head to foot in a whirl of frolicking feathers. The boy stared up at him, and Ponja saw upon the child's forehead 3 small red dots of discoloration, so perfect as to have been painted thereupon. Yet he knew them to be a natural birthmark. Tirna's blue eyes equaled the master priest's in their blaze, yet his face was that of a tender age, the soft flesh still dewy with the memory of the womb, framed in dark hair, nestled in curls at the nape of his neck. Ponja knew without a doubt, as he gazed upon the boy-child, that this was he who had become the master of the 3 crowns, who would become the master of the 3 crowns. Without a word, he took Tirna's tiny hand in his, nodded to his parents to follow, and walked toward the Temple of the Lion, which towered like a shaft of white lightning, brazing the horizon upon Upara, beyond Upara. And so was Tirna, the embodiment of Thoth Muzurud, given his initiation in the Temple of the Lion, where in the Vita of Thoth, his name in the form of the sacred trident was inscribed upon the stone. Of this ceremony it cannot be written, for none but the initiated may know of its ritual. Yet all who came into the presence of Tirna from that day forward would receive the benefaction of the blessing of an anointed one, who had taken upon him the mantle of the 7th path at the age of 2 years and 29 days of life. I just really, truly feel certain that that is the midden chamber. So there is a way into that midden chamber, although, as I'm saying that, I'm seeing that the way into the midden chamber is not through a tunnel, a rock, a portal, a path. In that sense, one has to materialize into it. Has to use another etheric way to be able to gain access to that. And that wouldn't be so magical. The whole idea of the Star Trek beam me up, Scotty, is quite scientifically possible and is used in many instances. Maybe it doesn't look just like they did in Star Trek, but that form. And I'm feeling that is what they used to enter the Vita Thoth. Upon their return to Adutara, the sage of KYI'RA, his wife, and the young anointed one began in earnest the preparations necessary for the future of a great master's sojourn in the earth. As Tirna grew, he was eventually joined by 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Well, these would have been half brothers and sisters. Thoth was born 4 years after Tirna. His name meant wind through the flute, and he was as strong and lean as a willow windwood. Thoth, I can't say these names, loved music, and often he would play the flute, while Tirna coaxed musical tones from an ebony harp. Tirna's brother, Raismes, was born the day before his 16th birthday, a golden-haired babe who would one day become a keeper and trainer of fine horses in Atlantis. Then there was Stefan, 28 years Tirna's junior, who was born without fully formed vocal cords. Stefan would never speak, yet his mind could transmit thought as clearly as a sunlit morning, brought let me read that again. Yet his mind could transmit through thought as clearly as the sunlit morning brought the full presence of the day to a sleeping world. Tirna's sister Carmel first suckled her mother's breast when Tirna was 31. She was an amber-eyed feline in her demeanor, always laughing and teasing, some kittenish ploy at work in her facile smile. Lastly was Lhasa, named for a Lemurian goddess of lofty places. She was auburn and rose, violet eyes resting upon the horizon of the dreamy sea. Tirna was 50 years of age when his youngest sibling was born. Yet at 50, his appearance in youthfulness was the equivalent of 19 or 20 in our current century. Although he loved and admired his half-brothers and sisters, Lhasa was Tirna's little pearl, as he called her. Still in the early ripeness of manhood, he took pleasure in a somewhat paternal role with the little girl, who delighted in every treasured moment she could share with her oldest brother. Lhasa would become an oracle in her womanhood, loving the sea more than the mountains, calling the golden-towered rooftops of Parabola in Atlantis her home, until destiny would take her to Egypt to become the companion of Ptah, the master Samer, period. Thus did Tirna mature into his youthful prime at Ajuhara. On even songs, alight with the fires of festival. Even songs were festivals of music and song in honor of the first even song when angelic beings brought heavenly music to the mortal world. So, on even songs, alight with the fires of festival, the family of the sage of KYI'RA and lovely Estaramaya would invite the inhabitants of Ajuhara Valley to an enclave near the lake of Mimi, where they would lead the even song with their splendid voices. Tirna would also play his harp and I can't say that name, his flute, while the many voices of the valley lifted as one, carrying their moving refrain unto the bell-like reaches of the mountain of the moon. That's the end of chapter 4, but I would like to make a little more commentary here. This whole thing of the aging is a bit confusing. I don't believe Tirna actually went into the cave and became Thoth Raismes, and well, it would have to be after his sisters were born. So that shows you how long everyone lived in. And then the Sun Lords, of which Tirna really already was one when he was anointed and taken into the, to the Vita of Thoth, would live even longer. Because Maya was still giving birth to a child when her son was 50 years old, her oldest son. So it's a little mind-boggling, but apparently that's how it worked in those days. All right, so we're going to end this chapter because it indeed has ended and continue to chapter 5.